Right, welcome everyone. As a result of the order in council recently issued by the province of Ontario and Municipality of McDougall declaring an emergency for the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as requirements for social distancing, this committee council meeting will be held electronically in accordance with section 238 of the Municipal Act 2001. I would ask that the clerk now take a roll call to determine quorum and advise who is participating in the meeting today. Mrs. West.
Mayor Robinson.
Present.
Deputy Mayor Constable.
Present.
Councillor Gregory.
Present.
Councillor Malott.
He's muted.
Muted.
I'm trying to figure it out. There we go. Present.
Thank you. Councillor Ryman.
Present.
It's determined that we do have quorum to proceed with the meeting. I'll now take attendance of staff to advise who is joining us today. Tim Hunt, CAO.
Present.
Chief Leduc.
Present.
Aaron Robinson, Treasurer.
Present.
And myself, Lori West, Clerk.
Thank you. I now call the meeting to order. Any declarations of interest? Seeing none. Prioritization of the agenda. No changes. Adoption of minutes. Moved by Councillor Constable, second by Councillor Gregory, that the minutes of the committee council meeting held on June 3rd, 2020 be adopted as circulated. Discussion? All those in favor? Carried. Deputations, none scheduled for tonight. Planning and building, no report. Any matters arising? Mrs. West.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a note that MMAH has advised us that the temporary suspension of Planning Act timelines will be ended as of June 22nd. So that really doesn't affect us. We haven't been holding any applications for that time period, but we do have some Planning Act applications coming up in the near future.
Okay, thank you. Other, Councillor Gregory.
Just of note, Your Worship, that the planning board meeting for Monday has been cancelled. So there will be one in July on the 22nd.
Okay, thank you. Any other matters arising under planning and building? Bylaw enforcement, no report. Any matters arising?
Your Worship, just a couple of minor items, just to let you know that all of the officers are back on regular patrol schedules based on the month of June, July, and August, our regular scheduled patrols, which will be daily patrols. Also, just to make you aware and make council aware, we're still picking up 3 or 4 at least every weekend of parking offenses down at George Hunt. So the majority of the people have gotten the message. However, there are still some that that haven't. But anyways, our regular patrols are taking care of that.
Okay, thank you. Other matters arising under bylaw enforcement? Fire protection, report of the fire chief, monthly summary fire services report. Mr. Leduc.
Your Worship, just again, year-to-date statistics, nothing really outstanding other than if you look under the mutual aid callouts, so four calls for assistance during the month. 2 of those were fairly large structure fires in the town of Parry Sound, which the fire crews handled very well under our excellent leadership in our captain's ranks. Everything went well. And other than that, we are still on our modified training program for June. We have 1 week to go. Then I'll reevaluate and decide if we're going to make any changes for the month of July.
Okay, thank you. Any questions on that report? No, thanks. Matters arising under fire protection?
No.
Okay. Emergency management, COVID-19 emergency response, declaration of emergency. This is a standing item on our agenda, just to, when we get to the stage where we're gonna remove it. I think at this point, we're following suit with the province of Ontario. They've left theirs in place, so we're leaving ours in place. Unless there's any comments or questions from council or staff on our status? No, okay. Any matters arising under emergency management?
Your worship, just a couple of items.
Mr. Leduc?
Your worship, thank you. So just as a couple of items, so the Sobeys Rotary food delivery program that we are involved with on every Friday morning continues. It's going to continue for, as far as we know now, for the foreseeable future into the summer. Also, there's been an additional request from Harvest Food Share and the Brit Food Bank requesting Thursday assistance from area fire departments to help them transport food back and forth between the two food banks. The 6 area fire departments have agreed to share that responsibility. And so that means for McDougall, we would have once every 6 weeks, we would be involved in that request for assistance on Thursdays.
Okay, good. Any questions from council on that? Comments? No. All right. Well, it's certainly good that the fire department is able to volunteer its time and help out with that much needed service in the community at this time. Recreation, no report. Any matters arising?
None, your worship.
Okay. Thank you. Public Works, any matters arising? Oh, Mr. Hunt.
Just want your worship, just let you know that Big Sound Beach or Nobel Beach parking lot is finished and lines are painted, and Big Sound Road is prepped and ready for asphalt. We're hoping to have it paved next week.
That's good. Good to see that job done.
Yeah.
Any questions or comments or matters arising under Public Works? Okay. Environment, Waste Management, matters arising. Finance, moved by Councillor Ryman, second by Councillor Constable, that the attached list of accounts payable for June 16th, 2020 in the amount of $487,788.25 and payroll for June 18th, 2020 in the amount of $54,156.59 be approved for payment. Discussion? Call the question. All those in favor? Carried. Item 13.2 under Finance, report of the Treasurer, managing the financial impact of COVID-19. Mrs. Robinson.
Thank you very much. I'm just here to provide council with a brief update year to date, basically to the end of May on some of the financial impacts that COVID has had on our municipality. Obviously, it's been a huge financial challenge for a lot of families, communities, businesses, and municipalities aren't exempt from that as well. A lot of we've been able to manage our finances well. However, we can't insulate any losses for the long term without digging into our long-term reserves, which would then cause problems. At this time, we haven't had to utilize any reserves to keep our cash flow in check. We have been managing quite well thus far. And then just to reiterate some of the issues is that we need to basically help insulate any of the negative impacts that arise because of any our financial position if people determine not to pay their taxes or cannot pay their taxes. And we need to remain committed to our previously passed budget in 2020, as well as look for cost savings when appropriate. Some of the guiding principles that should be used during an unstable financial period such as this would be having public health being our first priority, of course, which is obviously first, and secondary would be any financial impacts that follow from that. Preserve the long-term strength of the property tax base. Right now, 56% of our revenues that fund municipal services are from taxes. So any loss in these taxes due to COVID-19 will require a reduction in services or a disproportionate increase in taxes in the future to help cover that loss. Any approved tax deferrals provide short-term relief to taxpayers now while ensuring funding to maintain our current services. We also need to comply with legislation. So obviously we still have legislative bodies which we require to answer to, and at the same time, unless otherwise communicated from the legislative body, we still have to adhere to all of those legislative measures. Deviation from our financial plan should not be permanent. So any assistance that we offer to the public should be one time or have a defined end date where staff will look at the whatever was put in place to see if it is still of value or to continue on with any type of tax deferral program. We've only had 2 Section 357 requests for reduction in taxes since we introduced that. So I would say based on that, there haven't been a lot of people who have been requesting any type of deferral or tax penalty relief. Some of the financial impacts include our interim property tax arrears. So our interim property tax arrears following our second installment has increased by about 22%, which is a total of about $71,000 that we have in current arrears. If I look at the entire arrears for, you know, complete arrears for our tax base, we're up by about $150,000 based on this time last year. So we're definitely noticing that a quarter of people, you could say, are not paying their taxes right now. They're behind. Our landfill revenues since the pandemic began, March till May, we've experienced a decrease of about 9%, equating to about $20,000. If that trend continues, we could see around $90,000 budget difference in what we currently budgeted for revenue for the landfill. Again, it all depends on if the economy picks up, people go back to work, and you know, renovations and things like that continue to happen. Building permit revenue, as of the date of this report, and the end of May, we were down about 28%, which is $11,000 in revenue. I did hear today from our building official that we are currently about $500 over last year's amount. So we have kind of picked up based on the few permits that have been issued since finalizing this report. POA tickets, we don't typically receive very much income from POA. However, because the courts have been closed, a lot of those revenues will be deferred. And at this time, I don't have any impact for that yet. So how do we mitigate some of these financial pressures if we need to? Well, the biggest thing would be to use some of our reserve funds, in particular our working capital reserve. And at the same time, if reserves were needed for cash flow purposes, we would also have to look at what items would no longer be able to be contributed to the reserves because of our loss in revenues. Our reserves for our budget are based on, you know, our best estimate of what's going to happen in that year, but we can't contribute to that same level if our revenues do not match. Also, as a municipality, we can run a deficit in a year, but we can't budget for a deficit. So that is defined in the Municipal Act. Basically, any deficit that we do have during the year has to come from use of reserves or increasing our tax in a subsequent year. A more traditional approach would be to increase your revenues at the same time as reducing your expenses in the current year so that you don't have to carry on and dig into reserves or increase taxes the following year. We can't borrow to fund a deficit like the province or the federal government. So what is the magnitude of our potential 2020 deficit? It's hard to estimate at this time. It will basically be based on the state of the economy later in the year and the financial position of the residents. That'll help determine what kind of tax increase we'll look at in 2021 and potential loss for the current year. When I do have any financial updates with trends, I think a lot of this will become more apparent by the end of the summer when the province reduces some more of the measures that are in place now and more people are back to work. So I will have a better idea at that time as to what state our cash flow as well as our financial position is in. So currently I've been reviewing a lot of the expenditure and revenue forecasts from our budget. making sure that managers are aware of a lot of the expenditure line items in their budget, and watching those quite closely to make sure, we should be about halfway through the year, so they should be at around 50%, kind of making sure that some of those items aren't at 80% at this point, because in that case, we're definitely going to go over budget. Some of the other items are looking at issues in collecting property taxes at this time. Typically, this would be a time where I would put any water arrears, send out letters to people on our water system and advise them that non-payment of their water arrears would then go on to the property taxes, in hopes that a mortgage company that pays their taxes would pick that up, then we'd get settled. At this time, just because of the state of the economy and I guess considering the financial situation that people are in, I don't plan on sending those letters this year. I think that if people have the ability to pay right now, they will pay. They see it on their past due notice. So kind of being cognizant of that as well. In conclusion, at the same time, we don't know how long this crisis will last. We're actively trying to avoid a deficit, obviously, but it will become difficult if our revenues continue to decrease. It will be hard to avoid if we come in over budget on items. And at the same time, if our revenues just don't match what our expenses are, considering a lot of our expenses are fixed, we can't control that. Then we will end up seeing a deficit by year end, which will then come from reserves. Anyways, so basically, after speaking with some staff members, we're going to look for ways to reduce our expenses when appropriate and adhere to the approved budget and monitor future trends.
All right, thank you. Comprehensive report. Any questions or comments from council? Councilor Ryman?
Thank you, Your Worship. Mrs. Robinson, I know that we have, I guess we have some kind of a policy for people to call in. Do we have a lot of people calling in and asking for some sort of relief, or do we have a lot of people just not paying their taxes?
Mrs. Robinson?
Thank you. I would say it's more of people not paying their taxes. We haven't had a lot of calls. Anyone that has called has been aware of the fact that they can submit a short, piece of paper on a 357, which we would send to them and submit it to us for penalty relief. And like I said, we've only had 2 people take advantage of that. It's more that people just aren't paying their taxes. I think if they are in a financial situation, they know that property taxes, we're not going to do anything until, potential tax sale, which is 2 to 3 years out. So it is one of the expenses that they can let ride, and there's no real implications other than penalty.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Constable?
I was wondering, and you may not even have this information yet, or an idea, but is there sort of maybe a demographic or an area where we're seeing this in McDougall particularly, or is it just sort of across the board that you can tell so far?
Through me to you, Mrs. Robinson.
So far, it is basically across the board. It is difficult for me to look at that because of the only way I'd be able to really see it would be McDougall versus Ferguson. Otherwise, it would be difficult for me to figure that one out.
Okay.
Okay. Other questions, comments? All right. Taxes don't go away. I mean, the penalties are being waived right now, and we're being as flexible as we can be, but I think most people realize by deferring, you're just making it worse down the road at some point in time too. And I think on the flip side of that, it goes in terms of our capital projects and that we're trying to carry on with and do, because same thing, we've got our schedule for doing these, and if they get deferred, then it's just down the road going to double up or push out projects that need to be done another year, another 2. So at this point, I don't hear any alarm bells going off. I think it's just good for us to keep up to pace with what's going on. So it's a good report for us to know. And then I'm sure when it gets to the alarm bell stage, you'll be quick to tell us and let us know. So I know that there has been pressure from municipalities across Canada to the different higher levels of government in terms of some sort of assistance, but at this point I haven't seen that that's gained very much traction. Seems to be if they were going to do something, it'd be along the lines of the formula for the gas tax, which seems to work out fairly fair for McDougall as well anyway. So we'll just watch that front and see if there is anything available to us. But at this point in time, it's just stay the course, I think. Thank you. Any other matters arising under finance? Mrs. Robinson?
Thank you. Just two quick matters. I am looking at having Visa and MasterCard only accepted online through our website, through a third-party provider. Two reasons for this. One is because it will draw more traffic into our office when we open our office mid-July. And the other item is because the fees that we pay for Visa and MasterCard are dependent upon the card type. So if it's a high points card, then we end up paying quite a few fees per transaction, depending on the dollar value of that transaction. So by allowing people to make, if they want to pay by Visa or MasterCard, by allowing them to do so online, the individual ratepayer would bore those fees, not the municipality. So that's one item I'm looking at implementing in July. And then the other item to make council aware is that our tax bills will be going out mid-July along with a newsletter.
Thank you. Is there a second item?
Oh, and tax sales have been postponed until mid-September. The has advised us that we are no longer able to proceed with any tax sales at this time. So they are all on hold, which we have three or four that are currently on hold, and now at least until September.
Thank you. Any questions on those two items? All right, thank you. Administration, the MNRF watershed condition statement, just regarding the high water level in Georgian Bay and the concern for people's safety along the shoreline, to be cautious of those risks. 14.2, Phil Whitten, Superintendent, Bureau Commander, Municipal Policing, change in security check and revenue distribution process. Mrs. West, does that impact us?
Just there for information.
Okay.
Basically, they're just revamping their process to do security reference checks for the, is it the vital sector or whatever, vulnerable sector, sorry.
Okay. All right. Item 3 from Thomas Creek, Ontario Provincial Police, the Municipal Bureau. Or MUM, not sure what MUM stands for.
That's part of his
Title? Oh.
title.
Okay.
I wasn't sure.
Recent, just regarding recent protest activity and just reiterating the core values of the OPP, that they've been on this page for a long time and are certainly aware of treating everyone equal in the way that they conduct their business, which comes as no surprise to us. From Mac Bain, Executive Director, FONOM, the Executive Director summary on AMO policing governance policy regarding our resolution of 2020-64 regarding not thinking the DSAB is the proper way of police reporting back through to municipalities. Any comments? Questions? No? Okay. From the Ministry of Energy, Northern Development and Mines, Municipal and Community Survey, Economic Impacts of COVID-19. It's a survey that they've put out soliciting feedback to the to that ministry in terms of funding requirements and operations at the municipal level. I'm not sure, is there any member of staff that's sort of taking the lead on this?
Not at this time, waiting for council direction.
Okay. Any questions or comments or direction from council in terms of this survey? My recommendation would be that maybe we have someone on staff sort of become the recipient in terms of council comments and staff comments, and then compile it from there and then send it back to them. Is council okay with that? Okay. And who's the lucky volunteer from staff? Mrs. West, thank you. Right, so if you take time to take a look at those questions in the survey, council and staff, and provide any feedback that you have back to Mrs. West, and then she can compile a response for us and send it out to the ministry on our behalf. Okay. Sylvie Poulan, Manager, Departmental Correspondence Unit, Environment and Climate Change Canada. Just responding to Municipality of McDougall's resolution regarding Ontario Power Generation's proposed deep geological repository for nuclear waste. And for Minister of Municipal Affairs, for the AMO conference coming up this summer, which is going to be held digitally or virtually, whichever way you want to look at it. Request for delegation form is here, but you have to be registered for the digital conference before we can have a delegation, I think. Did I read that in there? Yeah, Mrs. West?
Councillor Gregory is registered for the conference.
Okay. All right. So if you have any suggestions for a delegation, then what was the deadline for that one?
June 26th.
June 26th. Yep. So coming up fast. I'm not sure. For the ones we did at Roma, we didn't get very much response back from them. I think the pool one that we did, that's coming up a little bit later. School board issue is, I don't know, they didn't give us a whole lot of attention during that one. Once again, they pretty much handed it back off to the school board themselves. So I don't see the point of banging our heads in the wall one more time. If I thought there was any hope of something, then I wouldn't mind doing that, but I don't really see it at this point in time. Anyway, if anyone has a suggestion for a delegation, then by all means, let the clerk know and we can send that in. Matters arising in administration. We're going to handle the format for the next council meeting under this section. Okay. We're just, let me take the, okay. We're just talking at we have an emergency management meeting, as you know, down to once a week now, which we hold virtually with staff, myself and the deputy mayor. We're just looking at trying to get things back. As you're probably aware, the office is back to full staff now during the week. Still not open to the public until July 7th. But we're just looking at council's desires in terms of this format for meeting, or whether we want to start to get back to normal a little bit more. My personal thoughts on it, just before I just, I can't see us having any more than 3 councillors on premises at any one time, just because of the social distancing aspect of it. Like I'm thinking with 3, there would be this chair, those 2 chairs, and then the CAO and the clerk farther out at that point in time. It could be done on a rotating basis where whoever wants, whichever 2 councillors want to be here.
Or feel comfortable.
Yeah, feel comfortable being here, then you can do it. Or we can continue on in the format that we have right now, or open to suggestions. So I'll open the council table up for discussion and comments on that. Councillor Constable?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind being able to attend in the council chambers again, and yeah, some sort of rotating thing if others as well are interested in that. I think it's a great idea.
Okay. Councillor Ryman?
Muted.
Oh, you're muted.
Sorry.
Hey.
Yes, I would agree with Councillor Constable that it would be good to get back on a rotating basis again. So I would also stay with your recommendation. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Gregory?
I agree with them, and I think it's probably a good idea if we increase our exposure a little bit at a time.
Okay. Right. Mrs. West?
So further to that, we would still have staff Zoom in and the meetings would still be recorded along with council members who would be at home. And we would still not allow the public into the council chambers. Just
Okay.
Yeah.
So our next meeting's in July then,
15th.
July 15th. So for that meeting, I'm not sure if you want to draw straws for whoever wants to come in. The first two councillors that jumped on board there were Councillor Constable and Councillor Ryman. But it's up to council, whichever way you want to make that determination. Councillor Malott, you muted, there we go.
Yeah, I would in favor of those two. If they couldn't make it, let us know and fill in, but I'm glad it's still in Zoom so we can at least follow along if we're not there.
Well, you'll still be participating by Zoom.
Yeah.
At this point in time, the same format you are now. It'll just be, we'll actually have a quorum on site at that point in time, but we'll still be same format we have right now. There'll still be comments and voting done by the two members who aren't here. And then the following meeting, we'll rotate those members around unless if anyone's not comfortable being here, then by all means, there's no pressure to be here to do that either. So it's completely up to you as councillors. So it looks like we'll go with that then. So for the July 15th meeting, there'll be myself and Councillor Constable and Councillor Ryman on premises, and Councillor Malott and Councillor Gregory will be on Zoom. And then the meeting after that, we'll rotate that around.
Okay.
I can rotate out too and not be here, but I just think from a chairing point of view, it seems to be easier to do it from here than from trying to do it on the computer, just from other meetings I've seen on Zoom.
Yeah.
So, but if someone has a dying desire to be the chair of the meeting, then that's fine too. I can give them their opportunity. All right, so we have a plan then. Thank you. That's for support. Municipality of Chatham-Kent, issues faced by the long-term care sector. I think that warrants bringing forward for support. Municipality of Chatham-Kent, support letter for Alzheimer's Society. Town of Orangeville Diversity Training Program. Matters arising under request for support. Motions of which notice has been previously given. I'm not aware of any. Item 17, committee reports. The Wellness Center and Pool Committee, Advocacy Briefing, Westbury Sound Area Recreation and Culture Center, Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program Community, Culture and Recreation, Multi-Purpose Intake. Mr. Hunt, you and I have been mainly involved with this, and Deputy Mayor Constable as well. Basically at this point, I think this is, at the last meeting we had of this committee, we decided to put together kind of a list of our main points as to why we want this in place, so that every council of the 7 councils, and in case you're somewhere where you get questions about it or you're going to a meeting and you want to be prepared in terms of questions for it, that just kind of lays out the format for doing. I think, did I capture all that, Mr. Hunt?
Yeah, that's good.
Mrs. West? Yep. Okay, so that document's a valuable document if you want to get it printed up or have it available for you on your devices, or if you're somewhere where someone starts asking questions or where we're at with the pool, that's a good. The main part was if we find ourselves in front of provincial or federal government representatives, this gives us a chance to give to make our pitch for our funding that's badly needed for this project, and we'll all be sort of reading from the same page when we make that pitch. That's the idea behind this. So I think it's a well put together document. Right. Wellness and Center and Pool Citizens Advisory Committee, the minutes of their March 3rd meeting. And item 3 is the minutes from their June 4th meeting. It's there in council's package if you have any questions on those or comments. Councillor Gregory?
Yes, Your Worship, I've heard rumors that McKellar is stepping out of the agreement. Is that true?
I have no confirmation of that.
Okay.
I haven't heard anything. Their representative was at the last meeting we had, which was held virtually. And there was some concerns raised by McKellar prior to that meeting. Those concerns were raised, and I think they were answered. And at the end of that discussion, the representative from McKellar agreed with the rest of the committee at that point in time.
Okay.
So I think beyond that, unless there's something I'm not aware of, then it's probably just the rumor mill out there.
Okay, good.
Any matters arising under committee reports?
Well, me again.
Okay, Councillor Gregory.
Okay, just a couple things there, Worship. Belvedere is still free of COVID at the moment. The renovation request that has gone into the province, they're all on hold at the moment. They're not giving out anything. And we may be in a very good position because anything that they give out in the future is probably going to be directed towards private rooms. And that's what the whole renovation was all about. It was all going to be private rooms. Then in regards to the library, in their time when they haven't had clients coming into the library, the CEO there has been rewriting many of their policies that have to do with everything, loaning of books, emergency procedures, everything. And those policies have become very popular, and the rest of the libraries in Ontario are adopting most of them. So Parry Sound's on the map as far as that's concerned. The roadside pickup, there's a video that goes along with that for people who are interested in picking up books. And they're starting to open up the library a little bit within the next week or so. They'll post the days that they're going to be open and the hours on their website. What else? No washroom open at the library. So that's it. Thank you.
So for the library, go before you go.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I think it's important that, especially right now, people have some time on their hands still. So it's in the library certainly is a good way to fill some of that time. So it's good that they're able to do their outreach the way they have. And if they can safely have people come inside, that would be a good thing as well.
Yep.
And given what's gone on in the province with long-term care homes, congratulations to Belvedere and
Yep.
everyone following the rules and practicing safe practices so that safe there. I don't want to jinx anything, but I mean, congratulations for the point that you've got to. That's good.
Yeah.
And certainly this has shone a light on some issues that people like yourself are very close to those long-term care operations know have been there for a long, long time in terms of personal support workers and the conditions and the funding. So hopefully if there's any good thing out of this, there are a lot of bad things out of this, but some good things may be that we should have some better conditions for our seniors going forward. Says the guy with the gray hair.
Yes, most of us.
Thank you.
The other thing, Your Worship, is that politics-wise, we mustn't forget that the funding was discontinued, changed, lessened within the last couple of years. And even though our new government is thinking about adding more money to the pot for long-term care, the reason it wasn't there was because of the past. Anyway, okay, that's too political.
I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
To your opinion.
Yeah.
That's the great country we live in.
That's right.
Thank you. Any other matters arising under committee reports? Report of the CAO, Mr. Hunt.
Thank you. Just a few quick things. The CAOs have got together and wrote an advertisement for the EDO in Parry Sound. That advertisement is out now. It is on the market. We do have a temporary one. Glenn Barnman is back in town temporarily, working for the EDO until we get somebody in the position permanently. So he is helping out right now. So that's good. So you'll see that advertisement, and as we move forward with that program, I'll keep you abreast as to how that's working out. We are still waiting for the funding approval. We've been told verbally that it's good to go, but we don't have it in writing yet. So we went ahead with the advertising on a condition that we do get funding. So hopefully we have an ADO back in business pretty soon so we can help businesses get back to work. As mentioned before, the Nobel Beach project for our side is done. It looks very nice down there. The parking lot's finished, the drainage is done, the beach is done. Looks good. So if you get a chance, have a look. I'm sure you'll be proud of the work that the guys did down there. Big Sound Road project is pretty much completed on the municipal side. We're just waiting for the contractor to pave it now. And we're hoping that that paving starts on Monday. That's our goal, to have it done long before the long weekend. Hopefully that's done. The other thing we've done is as the mayor mentioned earlier, we do have all staff back to work now. So this week we have touchless hand sanitizers in all our public buildings. So everywhere you go, you're going to see one. We are keeping them operated. They have been working very well. So we are taking as many precautions as possible. We are keeping our signs up and posted. Some difficulty at the beach keeping the signs up. People want to tear them down, throw them away, but we're keeping them up. So other than that, things are going very well. Like I said, we're back to full-time staff, which is nice to catch up on some of the backlog. So, things are well. Things are very well.
Okay. Thank you for that report. Any questions or comments from council? Okay. General items and new business? No. Bylaws? I don't think we have any tonight. Wrapping sheet, no new items. Closed session, no items for closed session tonight. Confirmation bylaw. By Councillor Gregory, second by Councillor Ryman, that bylaw 2020-35 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the committee council meeting held on June 17, 2020, be introduced and read a first and second time. Discussion. All those in favor? It's carried. Moved by Councillor Constable, second by Councillor Ryman, that bylaw 2020-35 be read a third time, passed, signed, and sealed. Final discussion. All those in favor? It's carried. Moved by Councillor Gregory, second by Councillor Constable, that we do now adjourn at 7:41 p.m. All those in favor? It's carried. Good night, everyone. We'll see you in a month's time.
Okay,
Good night.
thank you. Good night.
Night.
Aye.
Good night.
Night.